I'm pretty surprised that Republicans haven't taken more action against social media for the censorship that the right faces more often than the left. Obviously, people on the left are going to say that censorship isn't biased and it targets everybody. But that's just plain not true, because controversies surrounding political censorship, mostly targeting the right, have been going on for years. And I have some sources to back that up today. The other day, Jack Dorsey on CNN said that they don't look at content when determining how they, restrict users and things to that effect. He said that they look for behaviors. Now, I don't want to accuse Jack Dorsey of lying, but that statement is factually incorrect. So he's either extremely ignorant as to how Twitter actually operates, or he did lie on TV when interviewed by Brian Stelter of CNN. Because if Twitter doesn't look at the content of your post, how would they determine that you broke the rules? There's language that, when expressed, could mean two different things. If you watched my video yesterday, I said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign is on fire. Saying something is on fire could be good or bad. Like, when someone's on fire, you're saying they're like on a roll, they're doing really well, or it could mean that they're burning down. And there's a lot of language that could be appropriate, that could be used in the same way. Like if I said that, Group X, man, those people are inhuman. They are not human, in reference to someone doing a triple backflip. That's a positive comment. If you say that someone is not human because you're actually disrespecting their race, that is a negative comment. And Twitter has to be able to determine whether or not that, in context, is hate speech. Now, obviously, they get this wrong a whole lot. But there are many instances where certain things are said where people get banned because they're reported, and Twitter does look at their content when issuing a suspension. So let's take a look at exactly what Jack Dorsey said to Brian Stelter, and then I'm going to tell you exactly why he is dead wrong. But more importantly, for whatever reason, the Republicans aren't being more serious about this. If they don't get a grip on the censorship, the message they espouse, and their chance come November in the midterms, and even Donald Trump's re-election, they're absolutely in jeopardy. But before we get started, please head over to patreon.com/Timcast to become a patron and help support my work. This is what I do for a living, so if you like these videos, you want to see more like it, please consider becoming a patron today at patreon.com/Timcast. So here we have the story from The Hill. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey: I fully admit our bias is more left-leaning. And in a post from Brian Stelter, he said, "We do not look at content with regards to political viewpoint or ideology," Jack told me. "But he knows some people do not believe him. I think we need to constantly show that we are not adding our own bias, which I fully admit is more left-leaning." This is absolutely incorrect, and I've got many sources to back that up, but first, let's just actually look at the interview.
The president called you out for shadow banning. What is the truth around that idea?
So I think a lot of the statements behind the statement, the question behind the question is, look, shadow banning is a very widely defined term. There's not one single definition. So the definition that we found that seems to resonate with the most people is, not amplifying particular messages, or if someone puts out a tweet, hiding that tweet from everyone without that person who tweeted it knowing about it. So, but the real question behind the question is, are we doing something according to political ideology or viewpoints? And we are not, period. We do not look at content with regards to political viewpoint or ideology. We look at behavior. And we use that behavior as a signal to add to relevance.
Jack Dorsey, absolutely incorrect. And there's a few things we can go over to show why he is incorrect. For one, there are stories dating back to 2015 of people using identical language to people on the left and getting banned for it. This has been happening for a long time, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, of course people on the left are going to act like it doesn't only affect conservatives, because it is good for the left if people on the right are being banned for actually breaking the rules as opposed to their speech. But let's talk about Twitter's actual rules. Twitter bans hate speech. Well, hate speech is entirely contextual and based on your ideology. If someone says that they don't like a particular group of people because of something political, that can be deemed hate speech and you'll get banned, and people have. But you could actually invert the two groups and it becomes okay. In the instance of Candace Owens, she copied Sarah Jeong's tweets about white people but changed the word white to Jewish, and she got a suspension. Candace Owens has nearly 10 times the followers of Sarah Jeong. So it's not about if someone is a celebrity, if someone is famous. She literally copied the tweet from Sarah Jeong and stated in the tweet she was making a point, and Twitter suspended her. Now, naturally, they apologized to her, but clearly the system is set up, be it algorithmic or humans actually doing the banning, to oppose some ideology and not others. If someone says that they hate white people for years, Twitter does nothing about it. And I've heard people argue that no, Sarah Jeong was only not banned because the rules on hate speech didn't come out till later. But that's actually not true, because people have been banned for hate speech well before these new rules and these new updates. So why is it then when we look to the past, say Cassie Dillon's instance, we can see that she was banned for using the exact same language as Leslie Jones. Michael Talon said, female conservative writer repeats what Leslie Jones said to see if Twitter has a bias and gets suspended. We can see the tweet from Leslie Jones. We can see the identical tweet to Leslie Jones. Only one of these people got suspended. It wasn't even about the language being used, it was about the user. Now, it's possible, we could say, that Twitter was just acting in favor of their verified Twitter users, and that has nothing to do with political ideology, because the tweet uses the words verbatim. But suffice it to say, Milo Yiannopoulos was banned, and Cassie Dillon was trying to make a point that Leslie Jones engages in targeted behavior, and it was okay with Twitter. Because, if you were to ask me, it's not even just the words they use, it's the fact that, as Jack Dorsey admitted, they are a left-leaning platform, so they're probably going to support people who support their view of the world. But Jack says they don't look at political ideology, but how does that make sense? They just banned all the Proud Boys. And we know for a fact they look at offline behavior. One of the people who got their verification removed was Jason Kessler, the organizer of Unite the Right. And most news reporting reflected it was because they were looking at his behavior and he promoted hate speech. Hate speech is part of a political ideology as well. Some people on the left will smear white people, and Twitter verifies them, like Sarah Jeong. Other people will mock Sarah Jeong and get suspended for it. So clearly, Twitter does have to look at the content to determine whether or not something is hate speech. And clearly, if conservatives are mass flagging Sarah Jeong and she's not getting suspended, Twitter doesn't care that she's saying things against the rules of Twitter. Twitter banned the Proud Boys because they said that they were violating their policy on extremist groups. Well, I want to take a look at this verified Twitter user, Lubchansky. This is Matt Flamecon. I'm not sure what his actual name is, but he made a comic that I think is actually really important in trying to understand extremist factions. In it, they say how to tell if someone is a Nazi, with your friend, the important pundit. They start by showing a man with a green cape, kek on his shirt, and a fedora, claiming that he thinks racists should be eliminated. As if to say that the Kekistani individuals, who for the most part are just anti-identitarian, not all of them, are somehow ethno-nationalists or genocidal. He then goes on to show a man with actual swastika tattoos, a guy in an actual Nazi uniform, but for some reason, the man in the purple sweater only thinks Antifa is the Nazi. The reason this is really interesting is that Antifa has physically attacked innocent people. We all know about the bike lock basher incident. Eric Clanton got 3 years of probation for bashing not a Nazi over the head with a bike lock. I kid you not, this man was on his knees with the hands up, and this guy, who is an extremist, bashed him over the head, as well as 6 other people. And he got 3 years of probation, yet Antifa accounts remain on the platform. But some people say, but look, the Proud Boys were engaging in violent rallies. They were violent people and they were racist. Except the Proud Boys openly tweeted that they were not about race, that they have many mixed race members, and they didn't care what you believed in. That doesn't mean that they're telling the truth. That's not the point. The point is that on Twitter, they were following the rules and actually agreeing with Twitter to an extent. But they were still banned for being an extremist group. But who else engaged in those violent rallies? Antifa. And Antifa supported and promoted those going to the rallies and engaging in violence, throwing mortar shells into crowds, bashing people with bike locks. Even though they're not saying it on Twitter, Twitter looks at offline behavior, right? Why then would Twitter allow one group on the platform and not the other? Clearly, it's because Twitter does look at the content, does look at offline behavior, and does weigh things based on political ideology. The point is, the Proud Boys were one of the largest Trump-supporting, or I should say, one of the most vocal Trump-supporting factions on Twitter. They gained a ton of press for going to these rallies, for holding these rallies, and then when Antifa showed up and engaged in conflict with them, they gained a ton more press. And we can even look at Vice News, who ran a story about RNC spokesmen and Republicans being shadow banned. In this story, they say Twitter appears to have fixed shadow ban of prominent Republicans like the RNC chair and Trump Jr. spokesman. In the story, they talked about how the Democratic counterpart, the DNC spokespeople, were not shadow banned, but Republicans were. So here's another point I want to make about why the Republicans really need to get on top of this. Otherwise, they're going to face the brunt of censorship like they already do. And it's that behavior is political. There are certain behaviors that Twitter says you can't do this. Hate speech, for instance. Well, as much as many Republicans don't agree with hate speech, many of them do. And it is mostly people who are on the right who think you have a right to hate speech. And it is mostly people on the left who think you don't. If Twitter is going to ban hate speech, that is unique to one political faction. The right tends to be for free speech, which includes hate speech. If Twitter is going to ban that behavior, that is almost entirely unique to conservatives, at least in support of the right to hate speech, then Republicans are going to face the brunt of banning. Because, look, someone might say, I am concerned that Group X is becoming extremists and we should watch Group X because they're an extreme people on average. That's hate speech. And many people on the left engage in similar behavior, but Jack Dorsey doesn't seem to think some things are hate speech. Like when Sarah Jeong says white people this, white people that, that's fine. But when Candace Owen makes a point by saying Jewish people, that's not fine. Clearly, the behavior associated with attacking white people and straight people, which to the left is called punching up, is okay. Because white people, straight people, men, they're not marginalized, so you're allowed to attack them. But to the right, who doesn't agree with that for the most part, as a principle, they will get banned for using similar language. Thus, Jack Dorsey is either really dumb, has no idea what Twitter is doing, or he's flat out lying. And I have to say, if he knows Twitter's policy is to ban hate speech, how could he say on CNN to Brian Stelter that they don't look at political content when the only way you can determine if something is hate speech is by actually looking at it? If these social media platforms are of the belief that you can't hate, clearly they have a bias, and what Jack is saying is absolutely incorrect. But the only thing that really matters is that there are going to be elections. And if people on the right can't express themselves and talk about why they're concerned with certain people for certain reasons, be it hateful or not, then Republicans are going to lose. There's a lot of people who are concerned about issues of national security of our borders and immigration. And it is entirely possible that some of those conversations about your concerns will fall under hate speech. So the left can talk about how they love everybody and how certain things are okay, and they can criticize white people and straight people all day because they're not marginalized, and there you have it. Jack admitted to being left-leaning, and certain behaviors associated with the left are okay, but those same behaviors targeting different groups are not okay. Plain and simple. We need to have free expression if we want to have real political debate. Jack can claim that they're not biased, but at the end of the day, if one side is allowed to speak and the other isn't because the other is called hateful, and they're looking at offline behavior, that side will eventually disappear from the conversation. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and we will keep the conversation going. What are your thoughts? Do you think Jack Dorsey is full of it? Because I think, as I've stated for the third time now, he's either dead wrong, doesn't understand his platform, or he's just straight up lying. Is his bias so thick that even when he admits it, he doesn't realize that he is biased by policing the behaviors of individuals? Comment below, we'll keep the conversation going. I don't know if I'll have more videos on my second channel today, but I will try, so we'll see what happens. If I do have them, they'll be up at 6 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Stay tuned. New videos every day here at 4 p.m., and I'll see you next time.